everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video, this fun Coffee and Books Polaroid drawing. We'll start with the Polaroid outline, draw the blurry books in the background, which is really fun, and then we'll draw our foreground objects just one by one, add some finishing details, and that's it. So if you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer extra tutorials over on Patreon, so I have that linked in the description below if you'd like to check that out. But before we get started on the drawing today, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just open up the file that downloads on your iPad and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. It might end up at the bottom of your list of color palettes, so scroll down there if you don't see it at the top. Other than that though, there are no custom brushes or anything like that today. I will also post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, first things first, this is the color palette that we'll be working with today. So let's just go ahead and get started. We'll first draw the background, then the Polaroid outline, and then we'll start drawing everything inside of it. So to set our background, we are going to do that by going to our layer menu, clicking on this background color layer to open up our color selector and select the first color on the first row of the color palette to set it to that color. Go back to our layer menu, just make sure we're on layer 1. And now we will just jump straight into the Polaroid outline. So, or like the border anyway, the white border and then the shadow underneath it. So to create the white Polaroid border, we are going to grab our second color on the top row of the color palette, grab our selection tool, set it to rectangle and turn on color fill. Starting on the top left corner, like a little ways from the top, more room away from the left side. We'll kind of start there, draw a nice, good kind of vertical rectangle. Nothing too skinny, but not too thick either. Just a nice, good size like this. Let it go to fill it in. Click your arrow tool to select it, set it to freeform, and then you can make some adjustments. So I might make mine a little bit wider. You can make it taller, wider, skinnier, anything that you need to. And then most importantly, just make sure snapping is turned on in the bottom left. And we are going to snap it to the center of our screen where we see both yellow lines pop up. So the vertical and horizontal yellow lines, that shows that we're directly in the center. So if you do any resizing after that, just make sure to recenter it. Okay, I'll click my arrow tool to turn that off. And now we're going to make the cutout for the top kind of square where our picture will be. So to do that, we'll grab our selection tool again. We'll still set it to rectangle, but we'll turn off color fill this time. We'll start a little ways in from the top left corner inside our white rectangle. Start there, draw a nice good ways, trying to get like the same distance on the right side because we won't be able to move the selection around. So just make a good selection, kind of more square shaped, so more room on the bottom, like so. Let that go to select it. Click your arrow tool and then drag that off the canvas. Click it again, and then this is what we are left with. So this is our Polaroid outline. So make sure you got a good cutout, redo it if you need to, but otherwise we will just move right along. So now we're going to make the shadow for this. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. We'll make a duplicate of this Polaroid outline. So slide to the left on that layer and hit duplicate. Grab the bottom one. Grab our third color on the top row of the color palette. Drag and drop to fill in that layer. You won't see it on your canvas, but you should see it on your layer menu that it changed to a gray color, this bottom layer. On our layer menu, we're going to click the N on this layer to open up our options and drag this layer style here up to multiply. This will give us a nice good shadow color. So then grab our arrow tool, move it down and to the right a little bit so it's kind of poking out there. Okay, and then that's the start of our shadow. So now to get it to look a little more shadowy, we'll blur it. So to do that, we'll click our wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and we'll drag this up a good ways to maybe like 10% at the very most. Okay, and then that is our shadow. So now we can go ahead and get started on everything inside our picture frame here. So we're first going to make the background, which is going to be a very blurred kind of look of bookshelves. That's going to be pretty fun. Then we'll add the foreground objects, so the table, the books, and the coffee cup. So let's start with our background inside our little square here. So to do that, we will add everything above our shadow layer, but below our white outline layer. So on our layer menu, let's just add a layer right above this shadow layer. We will grab our fourth color on the top row of the color palette, grab our selection tool again with it set to rectangle, and then turn on color fill again. I'll start just inside the white border here, so outside my inner square, draw all the way across, just covering the whole square, and let that go so it fills in. Okay, and then our bookshelves will be next, so we're going to just draw them pretty quickly, and then we'll blur it quite a bit so it's a nice blurred background, but it still gives the illusion that there are bookshelves back there. So to do that, we'll just add a new layer right on top of the layer that we just created, click on it and set it to a clipping mask. So we only draw within this shape that we have laid down. Okay, and we'll first draw the shelf outlines. So to do that, we'll grab the fifth color on the top row of our color palette. The brush that we're going to use is going to be this soft airbrush under the airbrushing category. A nice, pretty skinny one here. Okay, we'll set the size to maybe 20%. And we will just first draw our shelves. So we'll draw some vertical lines and then horizontal lines. So I'm probably going to cut this background into like thirds. So for my vertical line, so I'll go in about a third, starting outside of like my square, drawing a nice vertical line, holding some good pressure the whole time so we get a nice thick full line. Hold it down until it turns perfectly straight and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly vertical. Then once you do that, you can click this line button at the top and you can move it around. So I might move it to the right a little bit. Okay, then I will go back in with my brush, make another line over here, hold it down, touch my finger to the screen, click the line button at the top if you want to move it a little bit. And they don't have to be perfectly even. My right one's here a little skinnier, that's okay. Now we're just going to go straight into making our horizontal shelves. So on my right side here, I'll start maybe just about a third of the way down. Make a nice good horizontal line, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, try to, again, put some pretty good pressure down the whole time. I'll make another one, and I'll make one more towards the bottom. And then in the middle here, I'll kind of stagger them. So I'll start a little ways up from this one to make my first horizontal line here, hold it down, touch my finger to the screen. Here again, maybe a shorter one right there. Might move it down just a smidge, but still make it like a little shorter so they're a little different. And then I think that'll be it for here. I'll maybe just make this one pretty tall at the bottom here. Okay, and then same thing for my next one. I'll kind of stagger them again. So I'll start pretty low, good pressure, hold it down, touch my finger to the screen. Hold it down, touch my finger to the screen. Another one, and then again maybe like a short one here, something kind of like that. So we just have some good kind of staggered lines. Okay, and now we'll just go into drawing the books. We'll do this very simple, very easy. So on our layer menu, let's add a new layer above our square layer, but below the shelves that we just drew. So right in between those, add a new layer. It should automatically set itself to a clipping mask. Okay, and now we have our next three colors are just book colors. So we have the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th one on the top row. So a dark, a medium, and a really light color. So we're just going to start with the darkest one here, the 6th one on the top row, and same brush, same size, and we are just going to go through and draw some vertical lines of varying like heights and stuff. So I'll just start in this kind of left section. Maybe I'll draw one right by the wall, hold it down, touch my finger to the screen. I'll go over a little ways, hold it down, touch my finger to the screen, maybe make it a little shorter, maybe do one more over here. Again, just kind of trying to hold pretty good pressure, but like it's okay if there's some fading going on. Okay, then I'll go here. I'll maybe make another one, hold it down. Kind of shorter one, hold it down. Down here where we can't see the bottom of the shelf, I'll just start like a little ways from the top, leaving like a gap there. just to give the illusion that there's a book there. Maybe a book there. Okay, right here we have a pretty short shelf, but same thing. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it vertical. Okay. Then this one here where we can't see the top of it, it'll just kind of go off the top for the most part. You can maybe have some that like are a little shorter and don't quite reach the top. That's fine too. Some kind of right towards the edges. Okay, so that's just our start. So we'll just do that for each one now. So here we have quite a big shelf. So we'll just make some really tall books. Again, no varying heights though. Just a few on each one, 3 to 2 to 4, kind of whatever works. Okay, so that is kind of where we are starting with our darkest color. Then we'll just, same layer, switch to the next color in line, which is going to be the 7th one on the top row. Same brush, same size, and we're just going to go through and kind of fill in some of these gaps. So again, we'll just kind of vary our heights and stuff, but make some kind of like this, and then like maybe there's a gap for like 1 there, or a blank space even is fine. Here maybe we'll just add 1, and that might just be it for that one. But yeah, so leave some room for your next color, so we don't want to fill it in completely, but just kind of get another good variety of these going. Okay, and then once you have a good amount of that filled out, we will switch to our final color, the 8th one on the top row, and fill in basically the rest of the spaces or whatever, wherever you can kind of fit this pretty light color. So like I'll just fill in like a gap here. I might make this one just to kind of fill in this gap here, so it's just this shelf is done. Okay, I'll fill in a gap here, and then even if you have to overlap some of them, that's okay. We're going to blur it all together so it won't really matter. So like here, there's a good space there, and I wanted another one on this shelf anyway, so I just kind of overlapped that a little bit. So like same thing here. I might overlap there. There's a good space here. Good space on the edge. Okay, and I never have two of the same color next to each other. You totally can, I just haven't yet. So like here, I do have another gap that I need to fill in with this like reddish color. So I'm gonna grab that color again and just add another one of those there. Then go back to my light color that we were on and continue on. Okay, so then once you're done, it should look something like this. That is looking great. Now we are going to kind of blur it all down a bit so that it's not so sharp looking, so it looks more faded into our background. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu and we're actually just going to snap all three of these layers together. So our books, our shelves, and our little background square that we drew. So snap those all together. Click on it and turn on alpha lock so that we only blur what's inside the shape and we don't blur the edges of the shape at all, because they would potentially stick out from the edge of our Polaroid and we don't want that. So make sure alpha lock is turned on. Then we'll grab our wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and again we'll drag this up a good ways, maybe like 10% I think looks good enough. If you want to keep on going though to like, I wouldn't do probably any more than like, not even 15 is too much. So I would do somewhere between like 10 and 13 at the most. I might do like 11. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Once that is nice and blurry, we will just move on to all of our like foreground objects now. So we'll have a little tabletop, the two books, and then the coffee cup. So next up is our tabletop. Let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above this layer. We won't set it to a clipping mask or anything, but just make sure we're still under our white outline. So our tabletop is going to be in this first color on the second row of the color palette. So grab that, grab our selection tool again with rectangle and color fill still turned on. Start again, just kind of right in underneath our white edge here on the bottom left corner. Drag up into our open space here just a little bit, maybe covering like, you know, the tiniest, not the tiniest sliver on the bottom, but you know, just a small bit on the bottom, nothing too crazy, not even like a quarter of the way through, just a little less than that. And then let that fill in. If you need to, with your arrow tool on freeform or uniform, you can move it around a little bit. Just make sure, yeah, we get a little bit down at the bottom there. Okay. And then now we'll add some details to this. Okay, so on our layer menu, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock so we only draw within this shape. And the first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of a shadow towards the bottom half of it. So to do that, we'll grab the third color on the second row of the color palette, the darker one. We will go to our brushes and find the soft brush under the airbrushing category, so this nice big one. We'll set that to like 8 to 10% somewhere in there and just very lightly across the bottom. Kind of start outside and just work your way in until you get a nice little shadow on like the bottom half of our rectangle here. Go very lightly to kind of blend it all together nicely, like so. Okay, then same layer, we're just going to add some details to it now to make it look a little more wood-like. So we'll grab the second color on the second row now, the lighter one. We'll switch our brush to the dry ink brush under the inking category. Set pretty low to like 10%. And we are just going to kind of draw some like wood grain on this. So we'll basically just draw some kind of like squiggly horizontal lines. Maybe some little like kind of knot areas, so like some little blobs. Just kind of all throughout. All the way across. Something just like this, nothing too crazy. Okay, and then once that's done, we are going to get straight into our books. So to do our first book, let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer. Right above the layer that we were just on, still underneath our white outline layer. Okay, we are going to grab the first color on the last row of the color palette now. We're going to switch to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. We'll have that set to like 30%, and we are going to turn on symmetry to help us with this. So under the gear icon, under canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, then click edit drawing guide, set it to symmetry. You should see a vertical line, but we are actually going to change it. We are going to change it to quadrant symmetry. Once you have that set, go ahead and click done. Click on your layer menu to open up your layers and just make sure this layer that we're on says assisted now. It should. If it doesn't, just click on it and turn on drawing assist. Okay, monoline brush at like 30%. So quite a ways to the left of my vertical symmetry line and just a little ways up from my horizontal symmetry line. I'm going to start there, draw a line towards the center, hold it down until it turns perfectly straight, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. Extend it a good ways past our center middle line. That way you can kind of click this line button at the top and adjust it. So drag it around kind of where you want it to make a nice book size. We'll obviously move it down onto our desktop, but you know, just kind of set the size of the book. So we want it nice and thick, this first one, like so. Okay, then once that's set, we are going to actually turn symmetry off. So on our layer menu, let's just click on this layer and turn off drawing assist. Same color, same brush. On the left side here, we're going to draw a curved line going out and to the left to connect them. So draw a nice curved line, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Click the edit arc button at the top to adjust it if you need to. Make sure the points line up nicely on the edges, and then just make sure the curve is nice throughout. Nothing too crazy. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And we're also going to have it curved to the left. So that's why we couldn't have symmetry on anymore, because this one also needs to go this way. Otherwise, with symmetry turned on, it would have went the other way. So another curved line, hold it down, click edit arc at the top to adjust it. Make sure it looks nice. And then we can go ahead and fill that in. So this is the spine of our book. Make any other adjustments you want. I think this right curve is like a little too curved, so I'm going to just draw another one, kind of a little shallower. Okay. Now let's go ahead and just turn symmetry off for the moment. We are done with it for now. So gear icon, just click to turn off the drawing guide. Okay, grab our book spine with our arrow tool, drag it down onto our tabletop here, maybe a little to the left of center. So I'm going to put it right about there. Okay, on our layer menu, add a new layer. Drag the new layer below the book spine that we just created. Grab our next color and line the second one on the bottom row. Same brush at 30%. And I'm just going to start on the right side here, my bottom corner. I am going to draw a straight line kind of at an angle here. So kind of like this. Hold it down until it turns perfectly straight. A nice good long line. Let's go ahead and just set this angle here. So it is 2 up from horizontal. So if you're on horizontal, go up 1, go up 2. So maybe right about there. A nice good length. Like so. Okay, grab it with your arrow tool, and I'm just going to move it here so it's connected nicely to my bottom left corner, or my bottom right corner here. So that's kind of connected there. So that starts the kind of like bottom of our book. Okay, that looks great. Now we're going to make the top cover, and we need the lines to kind of be the same length, same angle as this one that we just drew so that they all kind of meet up nicely. So to do that, we'll just go to our layer menu. We'll make a duplicate of this line that we just drew. So slide to the left on this layer and hit duplicate. Grab your arrow tool, and we're just going to move it kind of straight up. So just kind of right in line with it. With snapping turn on the bottom left, when you move it, you'll see these 3 blue vertical lines that shows that they're perfectly lined up with each other. That's what we want. Just drag it up until it meets nicely with this top right corner of our spine. So right about there. Okay, another duplicate of this, so slide to the left and hit duplicate, arrow tool. I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to put this one on the left side now, the left top side. So we'll drag it all the way over, And then again, you'll see these 3 blue horizontal lines this time to show that it's lined up with this first one that we have on the right side. So make sure that is true, and then make sure this lines up nicely with our top left corner. Okay, beautiful. Let's just go to our layer menu and snap these 3 together so they're all on one layer. Okay, with our pen tool, I am going to connect these top 2 together with a straight horizontal line. Since they're lined up perfectly, this should work. So start on one end, draw all the way across to the other, hold it down until it turns perfectly straight. Touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly horizontal, and it should meet up perfectly there. Okay, then we'll do the same thing across the bottom here, right on top of the spine. Straight line, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to connect them so that we can fill this top part in. Okay, and then the only difference is this top part needs to be lighter. So we are going to grab this lighter color, the 3rd one on the bottom row, and just refill in this top section. So we left it dark just because our first one was dark and to just kind of help us get our guides going. But now that that's all placed, we can just fill that one in lighter. This bottom one is darker, and then our spine is in between them. Next up, let's draw our pages. So the pages are going to go right in here. So we'll just go to our layer menu. We'll add a new layer below both of our book layers so far, so right above our tabletop layer. We'll grab our 4th color on the 2nd row of the color palette. Same monoline brush at 30%. And essentially right on the edge here, far edge, I'm going to create a very slightly curved line to connect the top to the bottom. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Click the arc button at the top to adjust it. So yeah, just a nice good curve right towards the edge there. Just a very small curve, nothing too crazy. Connects it from top to bottom. Grab my pen tool again, and then we just need to create a shape to fill in. So I'm just going to draw behind this, back to the beginning, and fill it in. Okay. Now we'll add some details to our pages, and then we'll add the details to the rest of our book. So first, we are going to create a slight shadow on it. So on our layer menu, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, grab our next color in line, the 5th one on the 2nd row, slightly darker than the one we were just on. We'll switch to our soft brush under the airbrushing category again. Let's drop the size pretty low to like 5% or so. And I'm just going to drag this kind of across the bottom just to give a nice little bit of shadow on the bottom half of my pages. Very, very light, nothing too crazy. Okay, now we need to make the kind of page lines on them. They'll be very, very light, very kind of choppy and stuff. Since they're so far away, they won't be like full horizontal lines, just very light. So to do that, on our layer menu, we'll add a new layer right above this layer that we were just on. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Click the N on this layer to open up our menu here and drag the style up to multiply again. Okay, we're going to be on the same color, actually the 5th one on the 2nd row, but since we're on multiply, it'll create like a darker color on everything. So we will first switch our brush to the dry ink brush under the inking category, set very, very low to like 5%. Okay, and then we want to get very nice like straight lines without having to hold them down every time. So to do that, we are going to use our drawing assist again. So on our gear icon, under canvas, click to turn the drawing guide back on. Click edit drawing guide. So we don't want symmetry anymore. We want to switch actually to our 2D grid. We want assisted drawing turned on. And what this does is this will make sure that we follow the grid lines. So as soon as we start drawing, it will follow, for example, in this case, either horizontally or vertically as soon as you start drawing. But we want to just change the angle of it so that we're kind of perpendicular to like our book cover. So we just need to rotate this grid. So I'm going to grab my green button here and I'm just going to rotate it a ways until they kind of line up. So like this line should line up with like one of my book cover lines. So we're almost there. This bottom one, you can see like it gets a little higher on the left side, lower on the right side. So I'll just rotate it just a little bit more with my green button. Get it as close as you can. See, like that is like pretty perfect. So just make sure that lines up nicely and make sure assisted drawing is turned on, and then go ahead and click done. On our layer menu now, just make sure that this layer that we're on also says assisted. It should. If it doesn't, click on it and turn on drawing assist. And now we can draw our line. So I'm just going to start kind of towards the top. Again, just draw like a nice little line. I'm not going all the way through, just kind of drawing little sections of lines. Some close together, some far apart, some longer, some shorter. Very, very lightly, just to get a nice kind of little wispy pages. So something like that. And that is where we will leave it. So once that's done, we can turn our grid off. So under the gear icon, just click to turn off the drawing guide. Okay, and it is still like active on this layer. So even though we can't see the lines, if you start drawing, you'll see it still follows them. So that's just on this layer that says assisted. The other layers won't be affected. So that looks great. And now we can move on to the rest of our book. So let's just first do our spine. So find our spine layer, click on it and turn on alpha lock. We're going to add again a slight shadow on the lower half. So our base color was this first color on the bottom row. Let's grab the second one right next to it to make our shadow. Switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category. Set still pretty small to like 5%. And I'll just start on the outside and just kind of work my way in horizontally to get a nice kind of shadow on the lower half. Very lightly towards the middle to get a nice kind of just fade from top to bottom, like so. Now we'll add the details to the spine. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu, add a new layer right above this one, click on it, set it to a clipping mask. Click the N on this layer to open a number of options, and this time we're going to drag it to overlay. We're going to grab the 6th color on the second row. And we are going to switch back to our soft airbrush, the skinnier one down here under the airbrushing category. We'll set it to about 30%. And we're first just going to make some little stripes kind of. So towards the top here of the book, so on the left side of the spine, I'm just going to start and make like a nice kind of curve, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Click the edit arc button if you would like to, and you can kind of adjust the curve. Again, I held the pressure down pretty good the whole time so that it was nice and thick, but still has like a little bit of a blur to the edges. That is kind of the look that we're going for. Okay, that was a nice thick one. I'm going to drop the size of my pen to like 20% to do the next one. So one right next to it, again, just nice good pressure, hold it down. Beautiful. I didn't need to adjust that one, but do so if you need to. So I'm just going to do those two on the top, and then I'll do one more across the bottom, the skinnier one. So another curved line, hold it down. Click edit at the top to adjust it, the placement or the curve of it. Okay. Awesome. Now we're going to add just some little hearts and like a line to it. If you would like to, feel free to add actual titles to them. You can either write them with one of the calligraphy pens, or you can type them with the text tool. So you can go to the gear icon under add, click add text, and then you can type the titles, type an author's name if you would like to. You might just need to add another color to the color palette to match it. So you can just like hold down on this like kind of gold color, and then you can like save that to your color palette and then add the text in that color. So that's totally an option, but we're just going to add some little fun details instead of doing that. So I'm just still on my same layer, same color, the 6th one on the second row. We are going to switch our brush to the dry ink brush under the inking category. I'm going to set this to like 10%, and I'm going to turn sideways here so I can draw some hearts on the spine. So right under this first stripe, I'll just draw a nice little heart. I'll go down a little bit and draw another one, trying to kind of keep it roughly the same size, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'll draw one above the bottom stripe. And then in between this, I'll just draw like a little squiggly line. Nothing too fancy. That's pretty much it. So that's going to be it for the spine of this book. We are going to draw something on the cover now. We won't really see it, but we just kind of want to give the illusion that something is there. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. We'll find our layer with our cover on it. Add a new layer right above it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Click the N to open up our options and set it to overlay again. Same color, same pen. And we are first going to just kind of outline the cover. So inside a little bit. So I'm just going to start inside on this top left corner. Draw a nice straight line going all the way down. Hold it down until it turns perfectly straight, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal to match that line there. Don't go all the way to the edge, leave a little gap. We'll draw a line starting there, going in towards the spine. Hold it down until it turns perfectly straight. Touch your finger on the screen to match that same angle. Okay, another horizontal line across the bottom. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen, and then again leaving a space there. Another line to connect these at the top. Okay, so that's just kind of the outline on our cover. Then with our pen, you can lower the size a little bit to like 5%. And we are just going to, again, I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm just going to kind of pretend to write like a title. No actual letters. I'm just going to kind of make some squiggles, kind of going in that same direction as like this line here that mirrors the edge of our cover. So kind of just something like that. Maybe another little section in the center here. I'm just going to draw what would maybe be like a flower. So I'll draw like 3 petals. And then like a stem coming off with maybe some leaves. Just so there's something kind of in the middle. Does not have to be pretty or anything. And it's kind of squished, you know, but that's fine. And then across the bottom, again, I will just make some more kind of squiggles. This would maybe be the author's name or something else. Okay, so that just kind of gives the illusion that there's something on the cover, even though there isn't really. And that being said, that completes our first book. So now that it's all done, obviously mine ended up kind of floating off the edge here. We don't want that. It's maybe a little too big is all. So I am just going to go to my layer menu, and we are first just going to kind of group these all together. So they're all together, but we don't want to snap them all together because they all have different layer styles and stuff. But we can group them so we can move them all at once and resize them all at once. So to do that, we'll just start at the bottom where our pages are, slide right on every layer above that that's part of our book. So they're all selected, and then click group. Then I can click this arrow here to minimize it. Grab it with my arrow tool on uniform. I'll maybe downsize it a little bit, or you can just also move it down a little bit too, but I don't want my back cover like hanging off the edge. So just as long as that is kind of within the table, I think that looks good. Doesn't have to be centered or anything, but you know, just look nice there on our tabletop. I will even maybe move it, like a little closer to the left side than the right side. Maybe about there. Okay, then for our top book, we are going to actually just duplicate this group and just do some recoloring and resizing. So on our layer menu, find our group with our book, slide to the left and hit duplicate. Okay, first we're just going to resize it and move it up. So with your arrow tool on uniform, let's just move it up, move it to the right a little bit, downsize it a little bit on uniform. Just gonna maybe place it right about here, just kind of hanging off the right side a little bit, kind of staggered like that. Okay, now we're going to do some recoloring so it looks different, and then we'll change the spine. So we'll leave the cover as is, we'll leave the pages as is, but we will now go to our layer menu, open up these layers. So again, our pages will be left alone, the lines on them will be left alone, but then our next layer here, which is our cover and our back cover, find that layer. Let's just grab this darker color, the 5th one on the bottom row. We will zoom in and drag and drop this onto the bottom cover. Okay, Then our top one is the lighter one. So same layer, we're just gonna grab our lighter color, now the 6th one on the last row, and drag and drop to fill that in. Okay, our overlay layer stays the same. And then our spine layer. Alpha lock is turned on. Make sure that yours is, just double check it. And then grab the 4th color on the bottom row. Go back to our layer menu on this layer, click on it and click fill layer. So now it fills that whole thing in with our reddish color, but we also want to add a shadow to it like we did our first one. So with alpha lock still turned on, we will just grab our next color in line, 5th on the bottom row. Switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category, the top one that's like nice and thick. Set pretty small to 5%. And again, starting at the bottom, just working our way in until we get about halfway through to give a nice little shadow there. Okay, beautiful. Now we just need to change the design on the spine. So on our layer menu, let's go to the layer right above this, the clipping mask that's set to overlay. Click on it and just click clear so that the clipping mask and overlay stays the same. Then we'll grab our 6th color on the 2nd row again that we used originally. Switch back to our soft airbrush again, the smaller one. Set that pretty low to like 15%. And we're just gonna make some pretty small stripes like we did before. So I'm just gonna do 3 sets of 3. Again, feel free to do something else. You can add other decorations, you can add a title, anything like that. But I am just going to do this design. So starting at the top, I'll make 1 stripe. That's too thick. We'll actually drop it down to 10%. Okay. Nice stripe, hold it down. Just kind of trying to evenly space them, make the curve nice and similar. So there's my first set of 3. I'll start on the bottom now. And then 1 set in the middle. Okay, so then that completes the spine for our 2nd book and completes our 2nd book entirely. So same cover, just because we can't tell now that we've covered up our bottom one, we can't even tell that there was something on the cover really. So like this one looks, you know, unique in that sense. So once our 2 books are done, we are just going to go straight into our coffee cup now. So let's go to our layer menu. Let's go ahead and minimize this group, add a new layer right above it. Okay, we're still underneath our white Polaroid outline. And this is where we will start. So we are first just going to draw a nice flat oval for the rim. So to do so, we will grab the 9th color on the 2nd row of the color palette. We will be on our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. We'll set that to about 10%. And just right up here, kind of just in the air somewhere, we'll draw a nice flat horizontal oval. Just draw a nice skinny oval, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. If it turns into a circle, it just thinks that that's what you're trying to draw, so just redraw it closer to an oval, nice and skinny like this, and then you should be able to snap it to horizontal. Set it kind of wherever. Don't use the edit ellipse button at the top. We will instead grab it with our arrow tool, and then you can make changes to it if you need to. So for example, I'm going to set mine to freeform and just change it quite a bit from top to bottom, kind of skinny it up there. But feel free to change the size of it. We can change the whole size of the coffee cup and replace it later, but just maybe set it about like this for now. Okay, and that will be our rim. So now we are going to make the bottom part of it by making a duplicate of this oval. So on our layer menu, slide to the left and hit duplicate, grab the one on the bottom, and grab it with your arrow tool, set it to uniform, downsize it quite a bit, and then not a ton, but just a little bit, and then center it below it like this, leaving a good distance there. With snapping turned on in the bottom left, you should see a vertical blue line here that centers them together so that you know that they're centered. Maybe a little bit bigger, recenter it, maybe about like that. And then again, just a good distance, wherever your bottom one ends up is fine. Again, we can move the whole cup later, so don't worry too much about where it like lands. I'm gonna make it a little taller, so I'll just drag this down a little further. Okay. Then we are just going to grab our pen tool, same color, same layer, this bottom oval layer, and we're going to connect the sides. So same color, same brush, same size, and we'll just draw a straight line from this side to this side, hold it down until it turns perfectly straight. Click this edit line button at the top to adjust it if necessary. Just make sure the points line up nicely on the top and bottom there to connect the sides. Do the same thing on the other side, hold it down. Click edit line and adjust it. Then we just need to fill in this main piece and our bottom oval here, but we want to fill it in on this layer, so we still need to connect it at the top because it's not connected at the top since this other oval is on a separate layer. So I'm just going to kind of draw around it, not leaving any gaps so that we can fill it in. Fill in the oval as well. Make sure there's no ghosty lines anywhere. And then once that's all filled in, we are going to actually change the color of the entire bottom shape here. So we're going to switch actually to the 7th color on the second row, slightly darker than the one that we're on. And drag and drop that to fill that in. So then our top ring is just a little bit lighter than our main shape. So it kind of gives a little highlight there. Okay, while we're on our main shape here, we're going to add a slight shadow to it and a little speckled pattern. So on our layer menu, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, grab the slightly darker color right next to it on our color palette, the 8th one on the second row, switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category, the bigger one, set pretty low still to like 5%. And again, I'm just going to start on the bottom, kind of work my way in a little bit till I get maybe halfway through. Nice and light there so it kind of blends together. And then we're going to do a little splatter pattern as well. So to do that, we will go back to the color that we were on originally for our ring, so the 9th one on the second row. And we're going to switch our brush to the Flicks brush under the spray paints category. We'll set that to just like 6-7%, somewhere in there. And I'm just going to kind of tap all over the mug like so to just create a little bit of this texture to it. Beautiful. That looks great. Next up, we're going to make the inside of this top area here. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. We'll go back to our original oval layer, slide to left and hit duplicate again. Again, select the bottom one. We are going to grab the 8th color on the second row, the slightly darker one, and drag and drop to fill in the middle. Okay. Layer menu again. Let's just make a duplicate of this layer that we just created. So slide to the left and hit duplicate. Be on the top one, so this filled in oval. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. So it's clipped to our other oval here. Click on it again and turn on alpha lock so that we can recolor the whole thing to our coffee color. So this is going to be our coffee. So grab the 9th color on the top row of the color palette. Go back to our layer menu. This layer that's set to a clipping mask with the alpha lock turned on, click on it and click fill layer. So that just fills it all in our coffee color. Grab the arrow tool and we are just going to move it straight down, not resizing it at all, just straight down into our cup a little bit so that we can see some of this inner edge and it looks just like we can see the top part of our coffee in there. So move it as low or as high as you would like it. Set it right about there and that looks great. Okay, so moving right along, we just need to add the handle and then the leaves on the front and then the steam to it. So let's go ahead and do the handle next. So on our layer menu, let's just go back to our group of the book here, add a new layer right above that. So we're underneath all of our mug layers so far. Okay, grab our base color again, which is the 7th one on the second row. Switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab, same 10%. And we're just going to zoom in on the right side here. You can do the left side if you would like to. And I'm just going to make the handle. So I'm going to start a little ways from the top, make a nice kind of curved line, hold it down all the way around. So it's kind of like an oval. It should be an ellipse at the top. So then you can click this edit ellipse button. If you want to adjust it like this at all, you can make it wider, kind of whatever you want to do. Adjust the size of it. Again, just a little ways from the top, a little ways from the bottom, like so. Once you like the way that looks, go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer now. So slide to the left and hit duplicate. Arrow tool on either one of them, the top or bottom. We're going to downsize it on uniform. Kind of replace it here so it's kind of in the middle. Makes a nice good shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly even all the way around, but maybe something like this. So then we'll fill in the middle of this to make a nice thicker handle. So get that to a place that you like it. Go back to your layer menu, snap these two layers together so they're one layer. Go back to our pen just so that we can make sure they're connected. So let's connect it at the sides here so that we can fill in this middle trunk. Fill it in with your brush anywhere that you might need to as well. And then that is our mug handle. So then that's all in one layer. So with your arrow tool, you can resize it, you can move it around, anything else you need to do. Might make it a little bit bigger. Place it there nicely. Might move it up a little higher. Okay, then we will add a shadow on the inside of this. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu, find our handle layer, click on it, turn on alpha lock. Grab the next color in line, 8th on the second row, same monoline brush, and we are just going to kind of draw right on the inside here. So I'm going to follow the shape, hold it down so it turns nice and smooth, and then click this edit ellipse button at the top to kind of adjust it. We just want a little shadow all the way through the inside. So just something like this, adjust it as much as you need to kind of get that to look nice. Okay. Lastly will be our leaves and then our steam. Looking at this now though, I think the handle's a fine size. The mug itself is just like really wide, wider than I would like it. So if you need to make any adjustments, go ahead and do so. I am going to make it a little skinnier from left to right. So to do that, I'll go to my layer menu. I'll select one of my mug layers, slide right on the other one so they're all selected. Grab my arrow tool on freeform and I will just kind of drag this side in so it's a little skinnier from left to right. I think that looks better. Then I can maybe make my handle a little shorter. Okay. There we go. Just kind of adjust it until you like the way that looks. And then we will add the leaves now. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu. Let's add a layer right above our main shape of our mug. Click on it, set it to a clipping mask. Grab our last color on the top row of the color palette, 10th in line. Same monoline brush at 10% still. And then we're just going to zoom in here on like this top left corner. I'll start and make a leaf. So I'm just going to make like 3 little petally shapes and then a line coming off of them to be kind of like a leaf. So I'll just kind of do that all over at different angles, trying to keep them roughly the same size. But they can all be like a little bit different. And then even on the edges, I'll have some kind of coming in. So like right here, I'll have just a little bit that you can see there. Maybe same thing here. Just to kind of fill that out. So go ahead and, move those around if you want to. You can use your selection tool on freehand with color filtering off, and you can like select around one that you want to move. You can rotate it, you can move it around, you can resize it. Anything like that, just to kind of get a good little bit of these going all the way through it to add some fun design to it. And then for these, we will just add a little bit of detail to them. So on our layer menu, we can just stay on the same layer. We'll just move to our darker color, the 9th one on the top row. Switch back to our dry ink brush under the inking category. Set really low still to like 5%. And inside each one, we're just going to make lines for our leaves. So one line down the middle, and then one in each side leaf. Just to kind of add a little more detail to it. Doesn't have to be too perfect because they're going to be pretty far away, pretty small in our picture. So just kind of something like that, just to add a little more fun to them. Okay, and then basically that's it for our mug. So now any other adjustments you want to make, go ahead and do so. Again, just might make this whole thing a little skinnier, just a little bit. Okay, and then once you're ready, we can snap all these layers together. So make sure you like all the proportions and everything, and then we'll just snap all of our mug layers together. Handle all the way up to our rim. Okay, arrow tool on freeform or uniform, you can move it around, you can resize it some more. I'm going to place mine kind of to the left of this top book here, so it's a little more in the center of our picture. So just place that where you would like it. Again, resize it if you need to, but I think that looks pretty good. And then we'll add the steam to it. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu, we'll add a new layer right above this. We'll grab our last color on the second row of the color palette. We will switch to our soft airbrush under the airbrushing category, the skinnier one, set to about 20%. And we are just going to kind of start in the middle here, right where my coffee is, and I'm just going to kind of make a little curved line coming off of it, kind of fading out on the ends. So push pretty light, and then if you need to adjust your size, go ahead and do so. I'm going to kind of go lightly around it, and then even just off that, we'll just kind of have some other little sections just kind of around it to kind of play into it as well. Something kind of like that, nothing too crazy. Again, lower your size some more, maybe to like 10%, and you can add some more just little tiny pieces to it, something kind of like that. Okay, then again, arrow tool, if you want to move it, rotate it, resize it, whatever you want to do, and then just kind of, again, place it towards the center of your coffee cup if it isn't already. And then also on our layer menu, we can lower the opacity of this a little if you would like to. So on our layer menu, just find this layer, click the end to open up the options, and you can drag this opacity down a little bit to just kind of lower the intensity of it. So I might set mine around 80. I think that looks nice. Okay, now we're just going to add a few little shadow layers, nothing too crazy, but just kind of bring everything together. So first we'll add one on the tabletop right underneath our main book. So on our layer menu, let's add a layer right above our tabletop layer. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Click the N on this layer to open up the options and drag it up to multiply. We will grab the fourth color on the top row of our color palette. And with our soft airbrush set to 20% again, we're just going to kind of very lightly go around the edge of this book to add a little shadow there. Nothing too crazy, don't push too hard, don't go out too far, just kind of all the way around it, like so. Again, if it got too dark, you can always lower the opacity of that layer. So on your layer menu, click the M to open up your options, and you can lower the opacity a little if you need to. I like mine at 100%, but if yours got a little too dark, if you were pushing a little harder, that's totally fine. Just lower the opacity a bit to help that. Okay, and then next we'll add one under our coffee cup. So let's just find our top book group layer, add a layer right above it. Click on that layer, click the N to open up our options and drag that one up to multiply. Same color, same brush. So now we're right on top of our book, right under our coffee cup, and I'm just going to very lightly go around the edges of it. Just add a little shadow there. Again, very, very small. Don't want it sticking out too far. Okay, and then we need a shadow under our, in between our books. So we'll go to our first group where our first book is, add a layer above that, so we're in between our two groups. Again, click the N, drag it up to multiply, same color, same brush. And again, we're just gonna add a very, very slight little shadow right next to it. I'm only gonna go as far as like my book edge is right here, so I'm not gonna go any further than that. I'm not gonna go onto the pages. So just kind of right where that cover is. Again, very, very lightly, like so. Again, Feel free to adjust the opacity on it if you need to. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to add a shadow to our pages a little bit right where the covers are. So for each book, we're just going to draw right on our pages layer with this color. So let's just open up our layer menu. Let's grab the first book, the one on top, open up the layers for that, grab our book pages layer. Alpha lock should already be turned on. Same color, same brush. We're just going to very, very lightly kind of go right across the top here to create the smallest little shadow there. And then a little bit along the spine like that. Nothing too crazy, just helps it make it look a little more natural. We'll do the same thing to the other book now, so I'll minimize this group. I'll go into the other group, find the pages layer, alpha lock's turned on. Same color, same brush. And again, we'll just kind of go right underneath the cover there, at least where we can see it. And then kind of along the top of the spine to cast a little shadow there. Okay. And then once that's it, that completes all of our shadows to kind of bring everything together. So that completes our drawing today. So I hope you had fun. I hope you liked the way that yours turned out. Hope you maybe learned something new. If you would like to see more tutorials from me in the future, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future drawings. And again, if you would like some extra tutorials that I have available over on Patreon, that is linked in the description below. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it. So go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.